It appears the media is desperately trying to rebrand President Biden. This time using his aviators, those signature sunglasses, trying to give him a cool, fresh look. Perhaps to shade his dismal poll numbers, and they still are dismal. Biden's image among Americans has struggled, arguably as much as his policies, from shaking hands with no one on stage, you can't forget it, to falling off a bike as he was about to speak to reporters, to struggling to put on his jacket and dropping his sunglasses on the tarmac. So the White House first tried to launch the tough take-no-names Dark Brandon. The meme was an attempt to repurpose Let's Go Brandon. It inevitably failed and was widely mocked. So now the media is stepping in, trying to paint him as some sort of superhero. The New York Times referencing the same aviators he dropped in this new piece titled The Return of Aviator Joe. President Biden is back after COVID, vacation, and legislative victories, and so are his shades. Emily, I read this piece. It's in the fashion section, and I could not believe that the so-called paper of record deemed this worthy of publication because it read like a child's book. I think I will subject the viewers to the introduction. It is something else. Aviator Joe is back just in time to take his quasi-victory lap. Forget the glowing eyes of Dark Brandon as President Joseph R. Biden Jr. arrives back in Washington, D.C. to enter the White House to sign the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. It is his Ray-Ban 3025s, though the aviators and the big grin public services cool persona they represent never exactly went away. They receded into the background, relegated mostly to bike rides and similar low eyeball appearances. But ever since Mr. Biden emerged from his COVID isolation into the sunshine earlier this month, the aviators have been front and center on his face. Wow, hard-hitting reporting from the fashion section.
I mean, I had the same reaction. I was like, is this a parody? Like, am I being pranked? What's going on? It was laughable and really bordering on offensive, frankly, that right now, given the amount of suffering that a lot of Americans are going through, that is what the New York Times decides to publish in this moment, on the year anniversary as well, one day later, of the Afghan botched, terrible exit. I think there are more priorities that Americans are concerned with. I also found laughable the fact that they had as an expert in this article a consultant on Veep who decided to tie in Top Gun 2 Maverick.
Yes.
And she said, oh, people loved seeing Cruise and his aviators again and responded. So the president's following the same path, hoping for the same results. No, sister, that's not what I'm hoping for. What I'm hoping for is a president that leads. What I'm hoping for is actual policy changes that will tamp down inflation, that will help put food on my table for the same amount of dollars spent as I used to spend, that can help provide for our families. And this is on the heels of what over 70% of Americans that are dissatisfied with the direction that the country is going in. That represents a 36-point increase in independents and a 26-point in Democrats. So this president needs to worry about his own party and those votes that he's losing rather than the optics of his sunglasses and getting the consultant on Veep to weigh in.
And it'd be one thing, you know, Harris, if it was just the New York Times fashion section, but it's not just that. CNN also referenced the aviators in what was presumably a more serious piece by John Harwood.
Well, they're yoked in the love.
They're yoked in the love. They call it the same Joe Biden suddenly looks different. And they say images of Biden as a feeble septuagenarian atop a mismanaged White House have suddenly given way to those of an experienced leader smiling behind aviator sunglasses. I haven't seen this transition.
You're about to be a new mom again. You know what rest can do.
That's true.
Right. You take 3 weeks off and see, don't you bounce back differently with the help of some sunglasses to close off the last image we had, which was the phony superhero look.
Yeah.
Like, how wonderful must it be for the left to be able to count on such legacy media to help them wipe away the things that don't work? So that weird Let's Go Brandon turn superhero Brandon thing that never worked, that was based on a negative about him in the first place, blah, 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 blah. Get the New York Times fashion department, their section of the paper, to help us out and make people forget that. It must be wonderful to have those kind of friends. That's like a bestie. And there's only one Snickers bar, and your bestie gives you the whole thing. Oh, my goodness. The seriousness in all of this is we're about to see a media blitz now. And if he's not taking questions at the point where he's winning, what's it going to look like when some of those local reporters who are in those areas where farming has been disrupted, right? They've got supply chain crisis problems. They've got worker shortages. What's it going to be like in those belts of the country when he starts getting asked questions. He can't just walk away. We're going to have to come up with some kind of a theme song for that.
Yeah, and they will be hard-hitting questions. The American people want answers. To Emily's point about Tom Cruise, they do compare him to Maverick. Just one sentence from that: the two men, or rather their signature characters, wear the same style and have for decades. I mean, I think there's no analogy between Maverick and our president.
Not really. You know, I just don't think that a $213 pair of sunglasses is on your face is how you connect with everyday Americans and what they're struggling with right now. You know, I'm not one to critique fashion. I had to get the good
You look
doctor
fabulous.
help me know if I could wear a brown jacket with this ensemble today, to which she politely told me no. So fashion, I'm not going to comment on. But connecting with people who are struggling in any way, putting sunglasses on and painting yourself as the cool guy probably doesn't get you there. You know, I remember President Trump pretty much always wore a red tie. I don't remember that being the reason why he was a good leader.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like he understands branding himself, but that's not your best foot forward. Your best foot forward is doing things for the Marines in Kabul last year. It's doing things for the people that live on the border. It's trying to get a sailor that's rotting in a Japanese jail unjustly home. These are the things that I care about. These are the things front of mind for me this week. People are worried about inflation. They're worried about what they're paying for things. They're worried about our national security. If you want to be a superhero for somebody other than the entitled, the vindictive, and the radical. Be a superhero for the blue-collar people you say you represent.
Absolutely.
Preach.
No doubt about it. And look, I just imagine, you know, President Biden, like, laid up in bed in Delaware or in South Carolina, wherever he's vacationing at the moment. He's in Delaware. Them giving him this New York Times article and him thinking, wow, I'm doing quite well. But the reality is, this is ABC's John Carl, Dr. Sapphire, who confronted the press secretary with the poll numbers. She at least seems to get it on some level.
We'll say this, you know, we have said this before. It's like, we get it. We understand what the American people are feeling at this time. He intends to run. He intends to run.
But let me ask.
We'll pop up the graph really quick that show what the American people feel. This is from Real Clear Politics, and you can see this precipitous downturn in his approval rating coming, as Joey mentioned, it was during Afghanistan that all began.
Well, you heard her say, we get it. We get what the American people are feeling. But, I mean, really, do they? I would have to say no. And at the end of the day, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. And so and President Biden is not Tom Cruise. And so when you have a feeble septuagenarian, their words, not mine, when the American people believe that his physical health and mental acumen are not fit for a campaign trail, let alone a second term, the White House is being very disingenuous by not being forthcoming with his state of health right now. And, you know, I actually liked what Joey said very much. Because the president is putting on these sunglasses, that is not being in touch with the American people right now. I don't actually think that he looks better after 3 weeks of rest. I think that they are just continuing to do this PR campaign, and they are out of touch. They do not know the American people want, and aviators are just not the way to do it.
I think it's ironic that they cover his eyes. Because there's so many Americans who express that they don't feel like they're seen by this president in the White House. Why in the world would you want to remind them that they're right?
Harris, I wonder, I mean, you have such a point about hearing from the American people, because, I mean, I remember when you'd be in this long presidential motorcade, you would see, and thank goodness for my boss, there was a lot of support along the roadway as we would go from point A to point B, but there were some protests. And President Biden, there have been reports that there have been protests along the pathway sometimes on his motorcade. And I wonder if he sees that. I just wonder if he sees the pain of the American people. I think he'll be confronted with it.
I think when he starts that media blitz and he actually leaves the basement or wherever he has been spending his time in his 2 Delaware homes, and he starts to listen to those local reporters, they are not guided by the White House press corps. They are not inside the Beltway. They are not part of that swamp coverage, the swamp-tastic circle. They're not in that. They are among, and sometimes, the very struggling people. The very ones, as they try also to raise their families in those local communities. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he and his team do and how many of those people that they can help, those Democrats in the House, 83 days from now on midterms.
I will say those...
Oh, sorry. I'll weigh in, too, on that, just because I loved your point about the glasses being that sort of that barricade and the fact that he doesn't see us. I mean, all we have to go on is whatever this flimsy branding is and then his policies and decisions, right? We know that grocery prices are still rising. We know that most Americans see that or feel that there's no end in sight. And now we learn that the IRS has hired thousands of employees to come after us. We know that the DOJ's priorities are parents, the former president, and not the recidivists hunting us on the street. I mean, all of this illustrates the administration's policies and priorities. And we know, underscore time and time again, that it is not the American people. That's the bottom line.
Maybe they all ought to wear aviators.
They should. Aviator administration. Hopefully you can see the protesters through those aviators.